Hello, everybody. While we wait for people to join, let me just post this link. Everybody, welcome to the next day of discussions. We stopped with the 18th century yesterday, if you remember. Please join me fast. Yes. Are you ready, everyone? Shall I start with my questions? My first question to you is, you know that Paradise Lost attempted to justify the ways of God to men, right? Paradise Lost attempted to justify the ways of God to men. My first question to you is, tell me which poem, which poem attempted to vindicate the ways of God to man? Which poem attempted to vindicate the ways of God to man? Waiting for your answers. Not book 9. Essay on Man. Correct, Niharika. Essay on Man by Alexander Pope attempted to vindicate the ways of God to man. That's very good. It's correct. Now, next question to you is, which metaphysical poet wrote a book subtitled The Works Both Humane and Divine? A man who lived up to a ripe old age. He was a clergyman. He never addressed his love poems to any single woman. He wrote over 2,500 poems. His major collection of poetry is called The Works Both Humane and Divine of Robert Herrick. So which is the book? The Works Both Humane and Divine of Robert Herrick. Correct. Charles Bernini. Have you heard of Charles Bernini? He was an artist. He was associated with a certain movement in art which inspired Milton. Milton's grand style is very close to this art form. It is a very dramatic, resplendent art form. Richard Crashaw, the metaphysical poet, has written in that style. What art form am I talking about? Inspired Milton's grand style. Charles Bernini, Baroque is correct. Baroque, you are right, Arvind. Baroque was a style that is very dramatic, very intense. It contained deep shadows and deep colors in art, very resplendent architecture. Great Baroque musician is Vivaldi. And Charles Bernini was a very major artist. Milton's grand style was close to Baroque. Richard Crashaw wrote in a Baroque style. At the end of Baroque came Rococo art. Rococo art. Rococo art was very similar to Restoration comedy. The same kind of aristocratic culture, languishing characters, touch of immorality, all these things were there in Rococo art also. Right. During the Restoration period, who wrote a satire on the Puritans and the tyranny of the Commonwealth? Which is the major satire on the Puritans and the tyranny of the Commonwealth? Baroque was the answer, Liji. Bernini wrote in Baroque style. Yeah. Who wrote the satire on Puritan and the Commonwealth? Samuel Butler. In the poem Hudibras, it is the first major verse satire in English. Remember that? The first major verse satire in English. Then, next question I will ask you is, who is caricatured as Cora and Monumental Brass by Dryden? Which character is caricatured as Cora, C-O-R-A-H, also called Monumental Brass by Dryden? Cora. Tomorrow there is no class. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because it's a Holy Week, long weekend, I am not teaching class. But on Monday, there will be the last free class. Spurti, please text me in my Telegram number, and I will add you to the group and send you the link. I'm sending you the phone number. You can text me. Right. Cora is not Addison. Addison is Atticus in Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope in Epistle to Dr. Abbott not caricatured Addison as Atticus. Cora is in Absalom and Achitophel. Cora is Titus Oates. Titus Oates was the man in charge of, a man associated with Popish plots. There was no Popish plot. It was only a rumor, but it led to anti-Catholic hysteria in England at that time. Titus Oates is caricatured as Cora or Monumental Brass. Dryden directly attacked, listen to me, Dryden directly attacked Earl of Shaftesbury, Duke of Monmouth, etc. But then Dryden said, my satires are Veronian satires. What did he mean by that? Dryden directly attacked people, like in Juvenalian satire. And then he said, my satires, Macflecknoe and Medal, are Veronian satires or Menippean satires. Veronian or Menippean satires. The same thing, but two names. What did he mean by that? Did you know? Did you understand? He meant Veronian satire is satire that attacks mental attitudes, not people. Veronian satire attacks only mental attitudes, not people. So when he said Macflecknoe is a Veronian satire, what he meant is he's not attacking people directly. He's attacking only mental attitudes, which is a lie. He's actually attacking people. Did you understand? So like that, they can ask questions, analytical questions, etc. Veronian satire is attacking mental attitudes. Remember that. Then, dim as the borrowed beam of moon and stars, to lonely, weary, wandering travelers, is reason to the soul. You know how to study excerpts in major literary theory, literary history books like David Deutsch, etc. They would have quoted lines from major writers. Okay, David Deutsch and other such literary historians would have quoted lines from from major writers. Those lines you should definitely know, because those are very important lines, and the net people are also checking whether you have read these literary histories. So even if you don't get to read literary history completely, at least the excerpts given in the literary histories you should make a note of and study those. Okay, right. Dim as the borrowed beam of moon and stars, to lonely, weary, wandering travelers, is reason to the soul. In which religious poem does he talk about this? It's a discourse on religion. It supports Anglicanism. So which poem? It supports Anglicanism. So religio laici. Religio laici. Laici means layman. Layman's religion. Okay, then. In preface to the fables, who are the authors that Dryden has translated? Which of the following is not, who among the following is not a writer translated from Dryden, etc.? They might ask. Translated by Dryden, etc. They might ask. Somebody is asking, will 1 month be sufficient to prepare for the exam? It depends on who you are, how much you know, how much work you do. 1 month is not sufficient. Even 1 year is not sufficient to study English literature. But what we can do in 1 month, we can do. It will be an awesome beginning, and it will really give a lot of motivation to your preparation. I can also give you a lot of resources that you can use for a lifetime, because all these links and resources will be there with you for a lifetime. Okay. Who are the authors? Please post in your comments. Who are the authors translated by Dryden? Not only Chaucer. Chaucer, Ovid, correct. Then other writers translated by Dryden. Boccaccio, correct. Homer, Virgil, very good. Homer, Virgil, Ovid, Boccaccio, Chaucer. These are the writers translated by Dryden. Very good. Then next question I want to ask you is, who famous, this everybody will know, who famously retold Elizabethan plays in Dryden's period, in Restoration period? Somebody retold Elizabethan plays, the most important of which was the comic retelling of King Lear. Who famously retold Elizabethan plays in Dryden's period, the most famous of which was the comic retelling. Why he translated Chaucer is because Chaucer's medieval English, he converted to contemporary English. Chaucer wrote in medieval English that he rewrote in his own English. That is why. Yeah. Tell me. What was the question I asked? Because you can't interact with me. What was I asking? I suddenly lost my... Nahum Tate, yeah, Nahum Tate, the man who rewrote Elizabethan plays, the most, not only one play, he rewrote many plays, the most famous of which was the comic retelling of King Lear. Okay, please look up all this, Nahum Tate's retelling of King Lear, like that, everything you should look up. You never know what they will ask, right? You should have thorough knowledge about everything, right? Which writer came to be called manly following a character that he created? Based on a character that he created, one writer came to be called manly. Which writer? Which writer came to be called manly? You know, Wycherley, William Wycherley wrote The Plain Dealer, where Manly is the protagonist. Manly is the protagonist in The Plain Dealer. Okay, now, next question I want to ask you is, This question. Which is the famous book written in 1690 on the extent of man's knowledge, not written, published. The famous book published in 1690 on the extent of man's knowledge. It began as a single sheet of paper, writing on a single sheet of paper, but it grew into an important non-fiction work. Which is the book? Which is the book that began on a single sheet of paper, and it is an inquiry into knowledge. It is Essay Concerning Human Understanding. Essay Concerning Human Understanding by John Locke. Now, who is the 17th century writer who was influenced by Martin Luther's commentary on Galatians? That they have already asked in it, something about it. Who is the 17th century writer who was influenced by Martin Luther's commentary on the Galatians? 17th century writer influenced by commentary on the Galatians by Martin Luther. It is John Bunyan. John Bunyan. Now, there was a periodical called the Female Spectator. Okay, you know, Spectator was there. There was Female Spectator. Female Spectator was edited pseudonymously by Mrs. Krakenthorpe. Mrs. Krakenthorpe. Pseudonymous. Pseudonym it is. Real name is something else. And this Mrs. Krakenthorpe, wait, I'm asking questions. That's why I'm not displaying the screen. After I ask questions only, I can display the screen. I'm not teaching yet. You should pay attention to what I'm doing first. Mrs. Krakenthorpe is a lady who pretends to know everything. Did you understand? Mrs. Krakenthorpe is a lady who pretends to know everything. This character, Mrs. Krakenthorpe, is based on Isaac Bickerstaff. Isaac Bickerstaff was the pseudonymous editor of the Tatler. Listen once again. The Female Spectator was pseudonymously edited by somebody under the name Mrs. Krakenthorpe. And Mrs. Krakenthorpe is a woman who pretends to know everything. She is modeled on Isaac Bickerstaff, the pseudonymous editor of Tatler. Richard Steele edited Tatler under the name Isaac Bickerstaff. And also, this Isaac Bickerstaff was originally a character created by Jonathan Swift. Now tell me, who used the pseudonym Mrs. Krakenthorpe? Or in other words, who edited Female Spectator? Who edited Female Spectator? That is my question. Eliza Hayward, correct. I've got the answer. Eliza Hayward edited Female Spectator. Very good. Now, probably last question, because we have a lot to cover today. Who wrote these lines against Restoration comedy? Who wrote these lines against Restoration comedy? Intrigue was plot, obscenity was wit, vice always found a sympathetic friend. They pleased their age and did not aim to mend. Intrigue was plot, obscenity was wit, vice always found a sympathetic friend. They pleased their age and did not aim to mend. Who? It is not Jeremy Collier. It is not Jeremy Collier. Can you remember? Can you? You might have heard this before. It is very, very common. It is Dr. Johnson. I'm just posting the link here. Yeah. I have posted link in comments. Dr. Johnson is correct. Dr. Johnson said intrigue was plot, obscenity was wit, vice always found a sympathetic friend. See, I have a very brilliant idea that I want to announce now. 8 p.m. class is going to be paid, of course. 8 p.m. people will join us. They are already joining. I have just posted the link here. It will be a structured course where I will be covering everything in structured manner. But I can't leave my YouTube friends. There are so many people who appreciate me and support me. So I have this brilliant idea. Every day before my classes in the paid course, not this 800 wala course, main net course, I ask questions. Those questions, sometimes I can go online. Those questions will be like this discussion. So every 2-3 days, I will be here with these questions and answers. I will tell you beforehand. I will schedule it and tell you beforehand when it is going to be so that you can join me. Okay, we are not going to stop this. It won't be at 8 p.m. It will be a little earlier, but we can all have this together. Okay, done. So I don't want to leave you all and just stop this. We are now going into the 18th century. I hope you're ready. The 18th century is the neoclassical period. It is also called the Augustan period. And at the end of the 18th century, there was the Romantic revival. There are two things that happened in the 18th century. Augustan age happened and also Romantic revival happened. No, I won't delete these videos. For full course, you should join using the link. I am posting the link once again in comments. 800 rupees. Otherwise, you text me in Telegram. Okay. Yeah. My phone number also I have posted. Alexander Pope is the first important writer. Alexander Pope was born in the year of Glorious Revolution. Now tell me, who died in the year of Glorious Revolution? 8 p.m. class costs 800 rupees. 8 p.m. class costs 800 rupees. I will cover everything. Yeah. Tell me, who died in 1688? John Bunyan. Alexander Pope was born in 1688. John Bunyan died in 1688. Name of the Telegram group is Everyday at 8. But many people are not getting it, so you better text me. Okay, the 18th century, the time of Alexander Pope, is the period of Queen Anne. Remember, the last of the Stuart monarchs, Queen Anne, and she was pregnant 17 times. She was desperate to get a son, and she didn't have. And she was almost bedridden always, and the prime ministers all became very powerful. The Hanoverian dynasty came after Queen Anne. Queen Anne's time is the time of the War of Spanish Succession. It is the time of Act of Union between England and Scotland. And it is also the time of the first Copyright Act. In Queen Anne's time, listen everybody, Queen Anne's time, War of the Spanish Succession happened, 1702 to 1713. Then at the same time, in Queen Anne's time itself, there was the Act of Union between England and Scotland. That means 1707 Act of Union between England and Scotland. And there was also the first copyright law of 1710. After Queen Anne, there was the Hanoverian succession, the four Georges and William. During this time, there was the agricultural revolution. I have uploaded one video just now before this called How Did Literary Theory Come into Being? Just a 17-minute video. You should watch that also. Okay. I have said a lot of social history also there. Agricultural revolution came into being. The clubs and coffee houses started. What term associated with Habermas came into being in these clubs and coffee houses? Do you know? One term associated with Jürgen Habermas came into being in the 18th century. That concept came into being. Do you know? Public sphere. Public sphere. Please look up public sphere. Jürgen Habermas is the important figure. It refers to our social media as public sphere. Public sphere refers to all the material and virtual texts that concern matters of national interest and which people share. Public venues like clubs, coffee houses, taverns, parks, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all this is public sphere. Okay. And during this time, there were many clubs that were formed. Can you name some of the clubs that were formed in the 18th century? Please post in the group. Kit Kat Club, very good. Scribbler's Club, very good. Kit Kat Club, Scribbler's Club. Then Dr. Johnson's Club was there. Dr. Johnson's Club, Blue Stockings Women. Then Samuel Richardson's Circle. Samuel Richardson's Circle. All these are important clubs of the Samuel Johnson's Club, of course. Samuel Johnson Circle. All these are important in this time. This is also the time of enlightenment in philosophy. In philosophy, there is enlightenment. Very important figures like Kant, Rousseau, Voltaire, Diderot, Montesquieu. They were very important in Europe at this time. And in religion, there was the principle of Deism. In religion, there was the principle of Deism. Deism means God does not come in front of us. We have to know God using reason, from the creations of God, from nature. You have to know God from nature. That is the meaning of Deism. And this is a rational idea in religion. And in order to know God, people began studying nature. This led to modern science. At this time, anyway, there was empiricism or importance given to experience. This led to an interest in human beings, other people's experiences, which gave rise to the novel. Other people's experiences became important. So reading novels became important. So this is called Deism. And during this time, Alexander Pope was a very important figure. Literature of sensibility also began at this time. Alexander Pope wrote in heroic couplets, and he believed and he advocated poetic diction. Heroic couplet, poetic diction. What is heroic couplet? Please write in your group, in your post, in your comments. What is heroic couplet? What is heroic couplet? Lines of iambic pentameter that rhyme in pairs. This is an iambic pentameter line. This is an iambic pentameter line. If they rhyme in pairs, two lines are rhyming, that is called heroic couplet. Okay, lines of iambic pentameter that occur without any rhyme, that is called blank verse. Did you understand? Iambic pentameter lines that occur without any blank verse. Any rhyming iambic pentameter is not heroic couplet. Rhyming iambic pentameter in couplets, only that is heroic couplet. Okay, now Alexander Pope, Augustan age. Alexander Pope lived from 1688 to, do you remember what is the year of death of Alexander Pope? 1688 to 1744. 1688 to 1744. Alexander Pope, when he was a young man, when he was only 16 years old, he wrote pastorals. Pastorals written in 1709. Alexander Pope wrote pastorals in 1709, and essay on criticism came in 1711. 1709 pastorals. How many poems are there in pastorals? Spring, summer, autumn, winter. 4 poems are there in pastorals. And these 4 poems, did you know, very important, they correspond to morning, noon, evening, and night. Morning, noon, evening, and night. Have you heard of Robert Browning's Pippa Passes? Pippa Passes is a verse play by Robert Browning. Pippa Passes also is divided into like this: morning, noon, evening, night. Did you understand? And do you know who published the pastorals? Very important figure. Who published the pastorals? The person who published the pastorals was in the he was in the Kit Kat Club. The person who published the pastorals was in the Kit Kat Club. Who published the pastorals? It is Jacob Tonson. Remember, these days in net, they are asking about publishers of 18th century poems, etc. So look up the publishers of Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding, Alexander Pope, etc. and study all that. Okay. Right. Jacob Tonson. Thomas Thorpe published Shakespeare's sonnets. Okay. Now, essay on criticism is a very important verse essay. Essay on criticism is a verse essay. In what kind of satire it is? Essay on criticism is what kind of satire? It is Horatian satire. Essay on criticism is Horatian satire. And what is the main theme of essay on criticism? Here, Alexander Pope talks about how writers and critics should behave in that age, in Miscellanies. Yeah, Pastorals was published in Jacob Townsend's Miscellanies. Essay on criticism is written in Horatian satire mode, and it is about how writers and critics should behave in that age. Did you understand? The poem Essay on Criticism has how many parts? How many parts are there? 1711 is correct. How many parts? There are 3 parts. Essay on Criticism has 3 parts, remember. Horatian satire, yes. And in Essay on Criticism, Alexander Pope famously asked critics to follow nature. He said, follow nature. What do you mean by that? Follow nature means follow nature, human nature as it is represented in classical works of art. Follow nature means follow rules, follow order, show divine grace. All these are meanings of follow nature. And in part 1, he talks about relationship of art and nature. That's a very important thing that he always talks about. He talks about importance of ancients also in part 1 of Essay on Criticism. And in part 2 of Essay on Criticism, he talks about the factors that misguided man. The factors that misguide man, like pride. What are the different vices? Pride, imperfect learning, etc. Then in part 3, he talks about good critical behavior. So they might ask, in which part of Essay on Criticism does he talk about good critical behavior? Or they might give you 2 famous lines and ask you about who said this where. So when you study, always remember to think of what kind of questions they will ask and study in that manner. Okay. It is in part 3 of Essay on Criticism that he says, he addresses Longinus. Longinus is the man who wrote Perihapsus, or On the Sublime, the Greek philosopher who wrote On the Sublime. In part 3 of Essay on Criticism, he says, "Thee bold Longinus, all the 9 inspire," like that he addresses Essay on Criticism. Now let us play a game. You must be bored. Let us play a game. I will tell you the beginning of a line by Pope. You have to say the rest of the line, okay? A little learning. Alexander Pope said in Essay on Criticism, a little learning. Complete it. A little learning is a dangerous thing. A little learning is a dangerous thing. Next one, I'm asking, he attacked John Dennis also. In Essay on Criticism, he says, to err is human. You have to say the rest. Many of you are writing. To err is human. I'm so glad you're all writing the correct answer. To err is human. To forgive divine. To forgive divine. Wonderful, wonderful. Fools rush in. Fools rush in. Say, fools rush in. To err is human, to forgive divine. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Very good, very good. Now, let me ask you another question. Which is the famous heroic comical poem by Alexander Pope? Which is the famous heroic comical poem by Alexander Pope, modeled on Boy Lou's Les Lutrines? Les Lutrines is a mock epic where 2 clergymen are fighting about where they should place the lectern. It is also, this heroic comical poem is also modeled on Tassoni's Secchia Rapita, or the rape of the bucket. Rape means theft. And there is also Vida's game of chess. Whenever you say rape of the lock, they are hiding it. They are not allowing us to show the comment. Okay, so the rape of the lock is the mock epic or heroic comical poem, which is based on Boileau's Leilutrine, Vida's Game of Chess, and Tassoni's Secchia Rapita. In which year was Rape of the Lock first published in 2 cantos? In which year was Rape of the Lock first published in 2 cantos? Rape of the Lock was first published in 2 cantos in 1712. In 1712. In which year did he republish it in 5 cantos? In which year did he republish it in 5 cantos? It is 1714. 1712, first two cantos came. 1714, altogether 5 cantos. Okay, rape means theft. And in the second edition of 1714 edition of Rape of the Lock, what philosophy or religious philosophy did he caricature? What religious philosophy did he caricature? Tell me. What religious philosophy did he caricature? Clarissa's speech came in 1717 edition. Correct. Clarissa's speech was added in 1717 edition. That is the 3rd edition. Tell me. Rosicrucianism. Correct. Rosicrucianism was added. It was satirized in the 2nd edition. Very good. And what is the name of the protagonist? The woman is Belinda. Belinda is originally Arabella Fermor, who asked Alexander Pope to write this poem so that he can laugh the 2 families out of their quarrel. Who asked Pope to write this poem? It is his friend, John Carroll. John Carroll. I'm talking about the Rape of the Lock here. The Rape of the Lock. In the first canto, Belinda is waking up at noon. She is dressing up for a social gathering. In the second canto, Belinda is journeying to Hampton Court Palace. Hampton Court Palace. In the third canto, they are drinking coffee and playing a card game. What is the name of the card game? Everybody post. What is the name of the card game? Shock is her dog, correct. They are drinking coffee and playing a card game. What is the name of the card game? It is Game of Ombre, O-M-B-R-E, Ombre. And in the 4th canto, the third canto, lock is cut. Third canto, lock of hair is cut. And in the 4th canto, Umbriel travels to the cave of spleen. Umbriel travels to the cave of spleen here and brings sighs. Adrenaline is produced there. He brings sighs and tears so that Belinda can cry. And in the 5th canto, there is a combat of which people are verbally attacking each other, after that physically, and the lock of hair is lost. In 1713, Alexander Pope wrote a topographical poem. Tell me the name. In 1713, Alexander Pope wrote a topographical poem about the place where he lived. What is the name? It is Windsor Forest. Alexander Pope wrote Windsor Forest. It is like John Denham's Cooper's Hill. Remember? And after this, Alexander Pope did what? He translated a very major writer. After this, the lock of hair becomes a constellation at the end. It doesn't become the poet. It doesn't become. Remember this. It doesn't become. The poet is thinking probably it has become a constellation in the sky. Windsor Forest, correct. Windsor Forest. After that, what did he write? He translated which famous writer? Homer. Alexander Pope translated Homer's Odyssey, Iliad and Odyssey. In 1717, the same year when Rape of the Lock was published in 3rd time, he also published a collected works. In this collected works, there are poems like Temple of Fame. Alexander Pope's Temple of Fame is modeled on which other work? Alexander Pope's Temple of Fame is modeled on which other work? Chaucer's House of Fame. Alexander Pope's Temple of Fame is modeled on Chaucer's House of Fame. And this collection also has Ode on Saint Cecilia's Day. Who wrote Ode on Saint Cecilia's Day? Pope. What did Dryden write similarly? Dryden wrote Song for Saint Cecilia's Day. And Pope also wrote Eloisa to Abelard. Eloisa to Abelard. This is a love story from very early times. Eloisa to Abelard. Do you know a famous French work which was subtitled The New Eloise? Do you know a famous French work which was subtitled The New Eloise? A student girl falls in love with her teacher. That is the story of Eloisa and Abelard. Iliad was dedicated to Congreve. Tell me. The New Eloise is the title of, a subtitle of Julie or Julie by Rousseau. Rousseau's Julie, Julie or Julie or Julie is subtitled The New Eloise. The New Eloise, correct. Then Pope has also written Elegy to the Death of an Unfortunate Lady, Ode on Solitude or the Quiet Life, Ode on Solitude or the Quiet Life. Do you know lines from there? Once they asked in net. Lines from Ode on Solitude or Quiet Life. Happy the man whose wish and care a few paternal acres bound, content to breathe his native air in his own ground. Those are the collected poems. Translation of Homer. And in which year did Alexander Pope's edition of Shakespeare come? In which year did Alexander Pope's edition of Shakespeare come? Tell me. Happy the man. Alexander Pope's edition of Shakespeare came in 1725. Do you know the publisher? Jacob Tonson, same publisher, Jacob Tonson. Alexander Pope's edition of Shakespeare was no good. It had problems. It was faulty. Some Shakespearean critic got very angry and wrote Shakespeare restored. Who wrote it? Which Shakespearean critic wrote Shakespeare restored, attacking Pope and his edition of Shakespeare? It is Louis Theobald. Louis Theobald got very angry with Shakespeare's faulty rendering by Pope, and Louis Theobald wrote Shakespeare restored. Did Alexander Pope keep quiet? Did Alexander Pope keep quiet? No. What did Alexander Pope do? Alexander Pope attacked Louis Theobald. Later, in which book? In 1728, he brought out a book. Which book? The Dunciad. In the first edition of the Dunciad, Alexander Pope attacked Louis Theobald. Did you understand? At this time, Pope wrote a book about bad writing. Pope wrote a book about the art of singing in poetry. That means bad writing. Which is the book? Which is the book that Pope wrote about bad writing? The art of singing in poetry is the subtitle. It is called Peribathos. Peribathos. Bathos means bad writing. It is the opposite of perihapsis or sublimity. Okay. After this, Pope wrote his greatest poems, which are Essay on Man, Moral Essays, and the Dunciad. Essay on Man, Moral Essays, and the Dunciad. Essay on Man is a verse essay, but it is also Horatian satire. Essay on Man is a verse essay, also Horatian satire. To whom is Essay on Man dedicated? Do you know? Do you know to whom is Essay on Man dedicated? To a friend of Pope. You should read about Pope's relationship with Bolingbroke. Bolingbroke, it was addressed to Bolingbroke. Okay. Whereas Moral Essays was addressed to several persons, different people. And there is a relationship between Essay on Man and Voltaire. Voltaire's Candide is a criticism of Pope's Essay on Man and its optimistic view of man. Did you understand? Here, Pope in Essay on Man talks about the great chain of being. He talks about the great chain of being. What do you mean by great chain of being? Everything in this universe, starting from God down to the minerals, God, angels, fallen angels, white man, white woman, black woman, like that. Everything in this universe is arranged in a hierarchical order. Even the four humors, the planets, the four elements, everything comes under this. That is called great chain of being. Did you understand? And who wrote the book Great Chain of Being? There is a man a famous professor who wrote the book Great Chain of Being. Do you know? Post in your comments. Who wrote the book The Great Chain of Being? It is Professor Arthur Lovejoy. Professor Arthur Lovejoy. Please look them up. When I talk about critics and all, you should look them up and find out. Okay. Dunciad was published in 1728, attacking Louis Theobald. Later, in 1743, he rewrote Dunciad. All this are here in the Essay on Man, Dunciad, Moral Essays. Tell me, in the second edition of 1743, whom did he attack? Whom did Pope attack? He attacked Colley Cibber. Yeah, Essay on Man is 1733-34. Colley Cibber. Then Moral Essays has 4 parts. It is called Epistles on Ethical Subjects, or Moral Ethics also it is called. Okay. And here he talks about knowledge and characters of men. In Moral Essays, he talks about which of the following is not a theme in Moral Essays. I'll go ask in Telegram group, okay? In Telegram group, I'll ask, okay? We will maintain everyday at 8 Telegram group and the unpaid group. And when I teach in coming days, I will be teaching every day. I told you, not in a structured manner. I'll give you rapid fire asking questions, okay? And then you can join the group if you want, and we'll share quizzes and things there also. Right. So those who have paid should be there in both groups. Yeah. Moral Essays is about knowledge and characters of men, characters of women. Remember the themes. And about the use and misuse of riches. And there is a 5th fragmentary epistle which was originally addressed to Addison. These are the Moral Essays. And then after this, what did he write? Imitations of Horace. He wrote imitations of Horatian satires. Did you understand? Who wrote imitations of Juvenalian satires? Somebody wrote imitations of Juvenal. Who wrote it? And he wrote a preface called Essay on Satire to his translations of Juvenal. That is Dryden. Dryden translated Juvenal. Pope translated Horace. Pope's Imitations of Horace has a prologue. Pope's Imitations of Horace has a prologue. Do you know the name of that prologue? The Prologue to Satires, or Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot is the author of Prologue to, Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot is the Prologue to Satires, or Prologue to Imitations of Horace. Did you understand? It is an epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot that he attacks Addison as Atticus and Lord Hervey as Sporus. Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot is a vindication of his own satire. Why he is writing satire, he is explaining here. Okay. Pope was the most important writer of this time, but there were also some other minor poets. There were other major prose writers who were minor poets like Jonathan Swift, Lady Mary Wortley Montague, Samuel Johnson, then Anne Finch, Matthew Prior. You're all very brilliant people. You know a lot of things. John Gay. Why I said that? Because I'm going to ask you questions. About all these people, I'm going to ask you questions. Yeah. Shut the door. Good, John. Fatigued, I said. This is the opening of. Please stop them. Don't let them trouble me. I don't want to talk to them. He's talking about the poetasters or the fake poets. That's the opening of Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. Now I'm going to ask you questions, okay? Which is Samuel Johnson's poem based on the 3rd satire of Juvenal. Telegram group, if I share link, it is not working. So just text me personally. I will add you. Please tell me which is the poem by Dr. Johnson based on the third satire of Juvenal. It is London. Yeah. Everybody is writing London. Which is the poem by Dr. Johnson based on the 10th satire of Juvenal? Based on the 10th satire of Juvenal. It is The Vanity of Human Wishes. The Vanity of Human Wishes. Okay. Many of these writers of the 18th century, like Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, Matthew Prior, etc., wrote verse day society. Verse day society. What do you mean by that? Verse day society means social poetry or familiar poetry. Social poetry or familiar poetry. At this time, there was a term called belle lettres. Belle lettres. I don't know the pronunciation. What is the meaning of that? It means fine writing. Fine writing. Okay, let me ask you another question. Who was the member of the Scribblerus Club who wrote poems like Rural Sports, Shepherd's Week, Trivia, or The Art of Walking the Streets of London? There is a member of the Scribblerus Club who wrote Rural Sports, Shepherd's Week, Trivia, or The Art of Walking the Streets of London. Who wrote it? It is John Gay. John Gay. John Gay wrote a famous play. That play inspired Bertolt Brecht. Which is the play by John Gay that inspired Bertolt Brecht? The play by John Gay that inspired Bertolt Brecht is Beggar's Opera. The play by John Gay is Beggar's Opera. Now tell me, Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, Matthew Prior, etc., wrote pastoral poetry of a different kind. Their pastoral poetry was different from usual pastoral poetry. What was the difference? What was different about their pastoral poetry? They wrote urban pastorals, town eclogues or urban pastorals. Shall I move the slide? Daniel Defoe, we have not come to. Urban eclogues or town eclogues or urban pastorals they wrote. Now tell me, City Mouse and Country Mouse by Matthew Prior and Charles Montagu. It was a reworking of, it was a satire on, City Mouse and Country Mouse was a satire on, some of you know, I know, yeah, it is Bertolt Brecht's Threepenny Opera that was influenced by Beggar's Opera. Tell me, Matthew Prior's City Mouse and Country Mouse was a satire on Dryden's The Hind and the Panther. Dryden's The Hind and the Panther. Now, at the now let me ask you another question. Macheath and Peachum are characters in. Macheath and Peachum are characters in. Beggar's Opera, correct. Macheath and Peachum are characters in Beggar's Opera. Did you understand? Then it is called a Newgate Pastoral. Why? Why is it called a Newgate Pastoral? Because it is based on criminals. Newgate is prison. The sequel to Beggar's Opera is called, what is that, Niharika? Polly. Polly is the sequel to Beggar's Opera. Polly is the girl who loves Macheath in Beggar's Opera. In Beggar's Opera, which politician was criticized? He got very angry. He denied permission to enact Polly. Which politician was criticized in Beggar's Opera? It is Robert Walpole. Robert Walpole, the father of our Horace Walpole. Very good. At this time, at the end of the 18th century, there was transitional poetry also. Transitional poets were also writing at this time. Now, let me ask you about some periodicals. periodicals. In which year did Tatler come into being? I can't move slide because all that is not there in the slide. In which year did Tatler come into being? I mean, in which year was Tatler published? Yeah, first Prime Minister. Tatler was published in 1709. What are the other things that happened in 1709? Do you know? What are the other things that happened in 1709? Pastorals by Alexander Pope was published. Then Nicholas Rowe's first edition of Shakespeare in the 18th century came in 1709. Nicholas Rowe's edition of Shakespeare. Tatler, 1709 to 1711. 1709 to 1711. Tatler. Spectator. There were two spectators. First, there was Spectator from 1711 to 12. After that, it was revived by Steele. Sorry, Addison, without Steele. It was revived by Addison without Steele. Remember that. Who is associated with the Review? Which writer is associated with the periodical The Review? It is Daniel Defoe. Very good, very good. All of you are writing. Blackwood's magazine came in 19th century, not now. Then tell me who's associated with The Review? It is Daniel Defoe. Then who is associated with The Rambler? Who's associated with The Rambler? It is Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson. Which 18th century writer edited the Examiner? Which 18th century writer edited the Examiner? It was Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift. Okay. Then, which coffee house was Addison and his friends associated with, where Alexander Pope also frequented, and Addison's friends then attacked Alexander Pope, which made Pope very angry. Which coffee house was associated with them? Do you know that? Which coffee house was associated with them? Leyhand also edited Examiner. He founded Examiner, but that is Romantic period. Now we are talking about Augustan period Examiner. Button's Coffee House. Button's Coffee House was associated with Addison and his friends, and also the attack of the friends on Alexander Pope. Button's Coffee House. Will you remember that? I told you 18th century novel developed because of empiricism, because Puritanism and Methodism gave importance to people's experiences. Remember? And because periodicals were there, clubs and coffee houses were there. Now, there was a licensing act that put an end to drama, to immoral drama. This also gave rise to novel. This led to novel. Spelling of what, Joe? When you ask spelling, spelling of what? Licensing Act. In which year was Licensing Act? What are they asking spelling of? I can't understand. Tell me, what is when is the Licensing Act? Oh, Button like Button, B-U-T-T-O-N, Button's Coffee House, correct. Rambling, no, Rambler. Button's Coffee House, I think that is the spelling they asked. Button's Coffee House, yeah. Like you have on a shirt, buttons, button, yeah, that is. Yeah. Now, in which year was the Licensing Act, which put an end to button? You are all writing the correct spelling only. B-U-T-T-O-N. Now, Licensing Act, which put an end to Restoration Comedy, was in 1737. 1737. It led to revival of Shakespeare's plays. It led to novel. Who was the famous Shakespearean actor who was also a student of Dr. Johnson? Yeah, during Milton's time, there was another licensing act was there, 1643, just before Areopagitica. There was another 16, and many licensing acts were there. Now, tell me, who is the major Shakespearean actor who was a student of Dr. Johnson? Shakespearean actor. It is David Garrick. With which theater was David Garrick associated? David Garrick was associated with one theater where Sheridan also later was associated. David Garrick and Sheridan were associated with which theater? Not Burbage's theater. It is Drury Lane Theatre. D-R-U-R-Y. Drury Lane Theatre. Drury Lane Theatre was associated with David Garrick. He was a shareholder there. Shareholder. When Restoration Comedy ended because of Licensing Act, what kind of drama emerged? What kind of drama emerged, which was a middle class reaction against aristocratic Restoration Comedy? What kind of drama emerged, which was a middle class reaction against aristocratic Restoration Comedy? There emerged sentimental comedies and sentimental tragedies. There emerged sentimental comedies and sentimental tragedies, correct? Sentimental comedies include the comedies of Kelly, Coleman, Cumberland, Richard Steele's Conscious Lovers, etc. Sentimental tragedies were also written at this time. Did you understand? Now, after sentimental tragedy and sentimental comedy were written, anti-sentimental comedies came. Later in the 18th century, anti-sentimental comedies came. Tell me who are associated with anti-sentimental comedy? Goldsmith and Sheridan. Goldsmith and Sheridan. Yeah, people did not like it. Mahalakshmi, correct? People did not like sentimental comedy and sentimental tragedy. And anti-sentimental comedies were written by Goldsmith and Sheridan later in the 18th century. Remember Goldsmith and Sheridan's plays? What are they? The Good-Natured Man and She Stoops to Conquer by Goldsmith. The Rivals. Then The School for Scandal by Sheridan. Clear? Okay. So tomorrow we have a holiday. Remember, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is a long weekend because I will post other videos. Okay, I am going to make videos, but it's a weekend holiday because you will have to go to church or study all these things extra you should study. When you come on Monday, we'll celebrate when all of you will ask questions and other people will answer. For some time, not all the time, for some time in between, I will say, okay, now you ask questions and you will ask questions. From everywhere, you should bring questions, okay? From everywhere. From the topics I'm going to cover also, you should bring questions. Okay, don't worry if you are not paying and you are not getting everything. I will continue some rapid fire for all of you. You should all continue studying. All these 200, 300 people who are attending this everyday at 8 should pass and you should have glorious careers, JRF, professor, you should become. Wish you all the best. Have a wonderful weekend and all prayers for a wonderful, wonderful career for all of you. After you make the payment immediately from InstaMojo, we will get your number and name and everything. We'll add you in a Telegram group and we'll give you all the details in Telegram group. Okay. My number is 9037357688. 9037357688. Thank you very much. I hope all of you will join our everyday at 8 course. It is only 800 rupees. I promise you, I'm not going to cheat you. You will get a lot of materials and probably your career will be made. Okay, so see you there. Bye-bye. I'm stopping the meeting for today. Have a wonderful evening and a weekend. Bye.